Driver and Ariana Greenblatt can't understand each other while they're running away from dinosaurs 65 million times in the same movie.
Welcome back to the channel, unless you've never been here before, at which point, welcome to the channel, and I mean that with the exact same quantity of heartfelt enthusiasm. I've just watched 65 because I like sci-fi stuff and I like dinosaurs and I don't hate Adam Driver. At least I didn't hate him before this movie. Critics tore this movie to bits, and we normal folk weren't all that generous with it either, so I figured it was right up my alley in terms of reviewing material. So I reviewed it. But in case you're not in the mood to stick around and watch my face talk about 65 for the next little while, I give it a 3 out of 10. There you go. You can leave now. Thank you for using me. But if you want to find out what this movie's all about without having to waste your time and money, stick around. 65 is a 2023 sci-fi action thriller directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and it stars Adam Driver and Ariana Greenblatt. So I watched the movie twice because that is what I do, and now that I've seen the movie, I'm having some difficulty digesting the fact that they shot this in Louisiana on a budget of $91 million. But the final cost of the film was $45 million after the Louisiana state tax rebates. Who says there's no art left in filmmaking? I do, actually. I'm saying it right now, to you. The idea of a space version of Jurassic Park got me all hot and bothered. I mean, if you're going to make Jurassic Park better, how do you do it? You put it in space, right? Now, obviously, we're talking about the first Jurassic Park, because you could make all the subsequent Jurassic Parks immediately better by just not releasing them to the public. Anyways, by the end of the opening act of 65, it started feeling a lot like shitty Logan. The little girl doesn't habla inglés. Adam Driver was all awkward. Now, obviously, the differentiating factor between these two movies is, Logan was fucking amazing. Now, don't get me wrong, 65 did hold my interest right up until the end of the movie, but it was in, the worst possible way. They established there's an escape pod on the other side of wherever the hell they were, on top of a mountain, and he has to get them to it, and they can't understand each other in generic. But in being that generic of a setup, and in knowing they spent $91 million on it, before tax rebates, I kept watching in anticipation of the big gimmick or hook or plot twist or anything. You would assume, even in this messed up day and age, that if you were going to spend $90 million on anything, there would need to be some kind of substance there somewhere, right? The whole thing totally perplexed me to the point I decided I had to get in touch with Adam Driver so I could ask him myself. So, Mr. Driver, my research team says in real life you're actually kind of... Whew, you guys weren't This is what he looks like in real life? You're so jagged looking. If I lost my balance next to you, there's 15 places on your head I could grab onto. I totally get it now. That's why they put those masks on you in the not really Star Wars movie when it made no sense for you to have one on in the first place. Listen, man, I had loads of questions lined up for you with this new 65 movie, whatever the hell it's called, but looking at you, I have forgotten every single one of them. How about you just go back to your hotel room and lay down and give that big head of yours a rest? And that didn't work out as anticipated. But anyways, if you don't want to know what happens in 65, you should probably look away now because spoilers! Otherwise, here's one of my condensed plot summaries. The movie opens a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, at least I think it's far, far away. A family on a technologically advanced planet called Samaris, who speak like us and dress like us and have the exact same problems we do, are talking about Adam Driver's character Mills going away for 2 years with his job so they can afford to treat his daughter Naveen's illness. And he goes. And on his way back, his spaceship hits some unexpected asteroids and crashes on some uncharted planet, which is weird given he's from a technologically advanced place, right? I mean, we can detect asteroids right now. Some people do it as a freaking weekend hobby. And since when do spaceships crash into planets when they smash into stuff in space? There's no gravity. So, like I said earlier, the ship suffers catastrophic damage, and he gets the standard punctured oblique muscle injury that every male actor gets when he survives something similar. It's like, ouch, I'm injured, but look how low my body fat is. The crash was so intense, everybody else was strewn across the landscape or flung into a lake or tossed up into a tree. But the drawer he goes into to get the George Jetson movie magic spray to heal himself is still perfectly organized. Like, look at that. Nice, neat, and tidy little rows while the rest of the crew were chucked into a murky swamp of death. $90 million. We could be fixing actual problems with that kind of money. Anyways, it turns out a little girl named Koa survived somehow, so Mills takes care of her and they can't understand each other, and about 9 minutes into the movie, you realize this is just going to be about whether or not they make it out alive. Which in and of itself is not a fault, by the way. A lot of my favorite movies have a wicked simple premise. But then we find out the planet is actually Earth 65 million years ago, and if it feels like I revealed that to you a bit too soon in the story, you're right. I have no idea why they decided to bust that particular nut so soon. An amazing example of exactly this kind of reveal, and I guarantee you it's where they stole the idea from, 1967, Charlton Heston, Planet of the Apes. I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen it, but if you haven't seen it, see it. But I will say this, Planet of the Apes executed that reveal perfectly. It was unexpected, and it was really messed up. When 65 did it, it felt like a huge wasted opportunity for a really brilliant gotcha moment at the end of the movie. But back to the story. So Adam Driver figures out the other half of the ship's way up on a hill and it has an escape pod in it, so he sends a distress signal to whoever and off they go. Adam Driver tells Koa her parents are still alive even though they aren't still alive, so she'll go along with them. And I can't for the life of me figure out the logic behind that thinking either. Maybe one of you intelligent people could explain it to me in the comments section. And the rest of the movie is literally a single predictable note repeated over and over, and the note's often missed. Like, you know when your kids are really young, like too young to play proper instruments still, so they give them all those like recorders, the poor man's flute, and they get them to belt away Baba Black Sheep on those, and they can't even do that yet? It's like that. And that single note that I'm talking about is they can't understand each other while they're trying to get away from dinosaurs. I know you probably assumed I was exaggerating with my cinematic intro joke about them not being able to understand each other and trying to get away from dinosaurs 65 million times in one movie, and of course I was, but not by as much as you think. At 20 minutes in, this little dinosaur attacks him, and instead of holding it as far away from his face as he can, he holds it kind of close to his face. And less than 3 minutes later, things are awkward because they can't understand each other. Then a few seconds later, they run away from a dinosaur, which leads them to not being able to understand each other at 23 minutes. By 32 minutes, they still can't understand each other, no matter how many times Adam Driver repeats himself or says it louder. Then at 33 minutes, an adorable little puppet dinosaur gets caught in some tar stuff and the little girl runs to save it. Adam Driver shouts at her to come back because it's dangerous, but they don't understand each other. At the 35-minute point, she's attracted the attention of a shitload of dinosaurs, so they hide behind a stump until the 36-minute point where they aren't able to understand each other. And at 40 minutes, Adam Driver dislocates his shoulder, but he slams it back in again just in time to fight off dozens of dinosaurs. I dislocated my shoulder way back in high school with sports, and when it did eventually go back in, it was still messed up for like a year. Like I'd be laying there all lovely and relaxed and half asleep in bed, and I'd go to roll over and boom! Shoulder twang! Obviously, Adam Driver is cooler and better looking and tougher than I am. While Adam Driver's killing all those dinosaurs, the little girl runs off and has her own encounter with some other dinosaurs. So Adam Driver saves her again, but only for a second. Then immediately afterwards, a different dinosaur drags her off, so he saves her again. Then he tries to calm her down, but they don't understand each other. They hide out in a cave at the 48-minute point, and Adam Driver shows her a wicked complex image of the asteroids on his Game Boy thing, and they're way far away from where they are, even though his ship wasn't able to alert him to the same thing when they were surrounded with them up in space. And then at the 50-minute point, they doze off, but a massive thing climbs all the way inside the little girl's mouth without even waking her up. And I mean, it would be the equivalent of like a barking Yorkshire Terrier sneaking in without you noticing. So Adam Driver saves her. Oh, and another thing, they forgot half of the effects. Goo is spilling out of her mouth, but they didn't bother continuing the flow onto her cheek. It disappears right here at the corner of her mouth. Even I would have done a better job than that on my little home computer here. $90 million. Right after he saves her from the mouth monster, another dinosaur comes into the cave after them. So he saves them from that one, and then they're separated when part of the cave collapses. Which you might think was exciting, but somehow it is not. Then another dinosaur comes after Adam Driver and he defeats it. And then the little girl's chased by this dinosaur and Adam Driver hears her screaming, so he goes to save her again, but he falls into a retro quicksand trap. Who does that anymore in movies? Who does quicksand anymore in movies? For any of you young folk in the audience, quicksand was this like go-to device in movies back in the 70s and 80s before they invented CGI and common sense. Now the movie's well into its second hour of runtime and it's like, oh my god, is the star of this movie going to make it out of the quicksand? Even though nobody in movie history has ever not made it out of the quicksand? How the hell's he gonna do it? There's only one other human being on the planet, and that's the little girl. Oh no, his head's gone under the quicksand. Oh look, the little girl saved him from the quicksand. Fuck off. And then, as there's really not long left in this movie and there's been zero tension up until this point, they decide to throw an asteroid into the mix, and of course it's heading right for the planet. And the little handheld contraption Driver's been wielding the whole movie feeds him all the detailed three-dimensional information about the asteroids again. And I promise I don't mean to harp on about this, but all of the tech on the spaceship that's literally designed to hurtle them through space couldn't have even sent him a fucking tweet saying, "Wake up, buddy, you're about to get fucking decimated." And when they do make it to the ship, the little girl gets angry for a few seconds when she finds out her folks aren't actually alive and kicking. Then the asteroid debris starts bashing them around, and then the T-Rexes come in to end the story on a triumphant bang, except we've already seen so many dinosaurs by this point that it's more like, fuck off, dinosaurs. And much to your surprise and delight, I'm sure, they beat the dinosaurs again and piss off into space just in time to avoid the asteroid that supposedly wiped the dinosaurs off of Earth. See how witty that little twist was at the end? Me either. Now I get it. Presented to you like this, all condensed and quickly, you might still be thinking, awesome, non-stop dinosaur danger. But this story has absolutely no pacing. Despite throwing in the extra dinosaurs and the meteors towards the end, the stakes never escalated at any point. What do you mean, Johnny? Think about it. At the start, when they crashed, what was their goal? To get off the planet. In the dying seconds of the movie, what was their goal? To get off the planet. There was no point that I remember feeling any tension or concern they weren't going to make it. They didn't even struggle with any of the dinosaurs, really. And in case you're thinking maybe I left out some cool bits, because I will do that with better movies so as to not spoil everything for you fine folks, I did not. My plot summary was condensed for time, not for content, so you have literally seen the whole movie. And for anyone thinking I enjoy constantly shitting on these movies, you're wrong. I want to love every movie I watch. Think about it. How cool would it be to walk away from every film you've ever seen beaming about it? It would be fucking incredible. So, my thoughts going forward, how did I arrive at 3 out of 10? There was no plot, they couldn't speak to each other, so there wasn't really any dialogue or acting. It was shot in Louisiana in a lot of places that looked exactly like Louisiana, funny enough, and you could see the ending coming 2 weeks before you even bought tickets to go to the theater. So where's the 3 come from? I know from personal experience all the worker ants associated with film production work seriously hard for unreasonably long hours, and I know they do it for crap money. You know that Dungeons & Dragons movie that's out right now, Honor Among Thieves? I was in that. I was the Dragonborn character. I wore a brilliant monster costume. I had a 4-foot long tail. I was nearly 7 feet tall with all my gear on, and I looked fucking amazing. And yes, they did cut all the footage, but I still did all the work. So fuck you. And my point, before this goes completely self-indulgent, is every time I have ever been on a film set, the crew works their ass off all day long, and so the 3 out of 10 for 65 goes completely to them. And I'm sure they'll all be very happy I have done this for them. It's my pleasure. Don't worry about it. Until next time, folks. Spoilers! 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 It's me, Johnny, from that thing you just watched. If you enjoyed it, go down there and smash me in the face to subscribe. And if you want to watch another thing, there's one right there. Do it!